What's up, man? How we doing?
Good, you?
Good, good.
Dude, is
I
that
just
an
got
official
myself a little.
Bananas jersey already?
No, it's not. It's one that I bought.
That's sick. How was your holidays?
It was good, man. Quiet, you know. It's always
Yep.
good when it's quiet. Hung out with the family and did the whole holidays thing.
Yep. Yeah, that's my favorite part. I get to see like my cousins that I normally don't see.
Yeah, it's family's super important. So
Yeah.
whenever I get to see my family and we're all together at once, it's always a good day.
Yep. And it's just fun to be with the people in general.
Yeah, the people that love and care about you. And, I don't know if you saw my Instagram, the picture of everybody dressed up as bananas. And,
Yeah, that was hilarious.
yeah, it's awesome. They're very supportive of this. And, it makes it a lot easier to do stuff like this when, when they support you. So,
That's awesome. Does it make you more motivated when they like have your back and are supportive?
absolutely. Absolutely. If they didn't support me and have my back with all this, I probably wouldn't be doing it anymore.
That's
Because
awesome.
especially being like away from everybody and you know how life is, people get sick, people get old, so
Yeah.
that stuff is always difficult. But when they support you and they want to see you do well and they help you, follow your dreams and all that stuff, it makes it so much easier. And this is like my way of getting the family to be like together. Like they all like even in my past years of independent ball, like they would all gather around my grandma's TV. They would stream the games on like a big TV and they'd watch it together. So that was like my way to get like the family together.
Dude, that's awesome. That must be a cool feeling.
Oh, absolutely. It's really cool. It's like my
Yeah.
contribution to the family.
That's awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have an interview with Frank Moscatello. Did I say that right, by the way?
You did. You did.
I did my studying. I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
I don't know if you exactly know yet, but could you please tell me about like what you think your role will be with the Bananas this season?
Yeah, so from what I know, I will be a bullpen pitcher.
Cool.
Not sure how far back in the bullpen I'll be, but whenever they tell me, "All right, Frankie, you're gonna have the bump," that's when I'll go out. Like
Cool.
that's my job is just go out, entertain, and throw the ball over the plate.
Cool. Have you always been a bullpen arm or have you been a starter most of your career?
So I was a starter all throughout college, 4-year starter. Then my first couple of years of pro ball, probably the first 3 years up until COVID. So after COVID was my first year of being a bullpen arm, so 2021. Um, and then I feel like that was kind of like the my career changing moment. Like I feel like as a starter, like early in my career, like I was just like another starter, just another pitcher in independent ball,
Yeah.
and then once I became a bullpen arm, I feel like, my projectability, I guess we could say, went up, you know.
That's awesome. Why is that when you jump to the bullpen? Did Indy Ball need more pitchers or bullpen arms, I mean?
I don't know if we needed more bullpen arms. I just think that it just suits me as a pitcher better. Just
Cool.
not really thinking, just go out. All right, guy on second, got to keep him from scoring. I don't have to wait every 5 days to pitch. And,
Yeah.
this past season, I led the Atlantic League in appearances with a total of 130 games, and I pitched in 60 of them.
That's
I
awesome.
have the franchise record for the Charleston Dirty Birds for the most single season appearances, and then I also have the franchise record for the Quebec Capitals for most single season appearances. In 96 games, I threw in 46 of them, and then in 130 games, I threw in 60. So, my job, I just whenever they tell me to go out and pitch, I go out and pitch. Very, I'm just reliable. You know.
Yeah, that's really impressive with the 60 appearances. How did you like manage to keep your arm healthy throughout all those seasons?
So I'm a big believer in order to stay on the field and show that you could pitch at this level is to stay healthy and be able to survive for a full season. So I'm a big believer in, working out and, arm care and taking in the best nutrition and just making sure that I could stay healthy. And a lot of that has to do with what you do in the off season. You have to build up a tolerance for the workload that your body is going to undergo during the season, during the off season. So you gotta, in my opinion, you make the off season harder than the actual season.
That's awesome because like that might suit you well in banana ball because you might come out every day out of that pen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to lead the league in appearances out of the bullpen. I've always the last couple of years, in the last couple of teams that I've played for, like I said, I've led the teams and I've led the leagues in appearances. And it'd be pretty cool first year to lead the team in appearances or the league in appearances for banana ball too. I feel like that'd be, if because to me, if I'm out there and I'm pitching, that means I'm doing something right. The coaching staff is trusting me to go out there and do a job.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome because that shows you have the coaches, you're reliable. That'd be sick your first year.
Hmm.
Speaking coming out of the bullpen, which stadium are you most excited to pitch in this season?
So being a Long Island, New Yorker my whole life and growing up a Yankees fan and, you know, specifically, the I have a ton of family members and friends going to Yankee Stadium to see me on the 25th. So that's got to be the one that I'm most excited about. Just because I grew up a Yankees fan. I have hundreds of family members going to the game. I'm going to be in my hometown or my home state, sold out, and I've just grew up watching the Yankees my whole life.
Cool.
So I would say Yankee Stadium is probably the one that I'm most excited about, just because I get to pitch in front of my family in a big league park, sold out. But there's so many different venues that we are playing in that are just unbelievable.
That'd be awesome in Yankee Stadium because you have the Yankee Stadium, which is iconic, your family, and you get to pitch there while becoming a Yankees fan.
Exactly. Exactly. And, ever since I was a little kid, when I was in elementary school and we did the assignments where it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? All of my assignments said, I want to play for the New York Yankees, and did I play for the New York Yankees? No, but, I feel like this is the second best option. You go
Yeah.
out and, I'm throwing at a sold out Yankee Stadium. It's to me, it's, you know, the next best option.
That's awesome. All my assignments have been the same way, but with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's such a cool first circle moment though, from like being in elementary school dreaming about it, and now maybe having more fun playing with the Bananas in Yankee Stadium.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do Banana Ball. Because like you said, it's fun. It makes baseball fun and it makes it a game. Because at the end of the day, it's a kid's game. And like Jesse Cole says, he says, we're not in the baseball business, we're in the entertainment business, and entertaining is fun.
Yeah.
Whenever you watch videos of the Bananas and the party animals and all the other teams, everybody's smiling,
Yeah.
fans, players, everybody. It's like a big party, it's a celebration of, just the enjoyment of baseball, and I feel like that is super important, especially in today's, life, just smiling, enjoying your day, having a good time, because there's so many things in life that could get you down and stressed out and, you never know what somebody else is going through. And, if I could go out there and I could turn a frown into a smile, for just one person, I know there's going to be a lot more people out there, but if I could impact one person's life positively every day, then, I take that as a win,
Yeah,
and
dude.
I know that there's going to be much more than one person per day. But, it my goal with Banana Ball is to make every little 10-year-old Timmy, Tommy, Jimmy come to the stadium and say, "Hey, that's my favorite player." And I want them to point at me.
That's awesome. It's like I've gone to two games myself. It's basically 5 hours of just nonstop fun, dancing, music.
Exactly. And like I said, you never see anybody that's not having a good time.
Yeah.
Like it just there's nothing about banana ball that I'm looking at and I'm like, oh, like that doesn't seem like something I want to do. It seems like just the best thing,
Jesse
and
Cole's a mastermind.
he's a genius,
Yeah,
and his story about how he got to this position is incredible.
yeah,
It's a true testament of, starting from the bottom and, working through adversity and grinding and, having a goal in mind. And I'm not going to stop until I make this happen,
yeah,
and Jesse Cole, he did it, and, he started from the bottom with, you know, I want to say college coaching. Or like something like that. And then now he's the owner of the most famous baseball team in the world, you
yeah.
know.
You guys have more followers on TikTok than the New York Yankees, which is crazy.
I saw something that Jesse said that I think we have more followers on social media than every MLB team there is.
That's incredible. If which hitter are you most excited to play against or face this season?
This season, I gotta say the 1-1 overall draft pick, Jackie Bradley Jr.
That's
You
gonna be
know, I
incredible.
he was a big leaguer. He had a established career, and he played he was an all-star, I believe, and he's just the biggest name that I've seen out there.
Yeah,
And if in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And he was on the big stage, and that just shows how cool and how much fun Banana Ball is going to be because you got guys like JBJ who are transitioning to Banana Ball now. Everyone's path is different. I played 8 years of independent ball. I went overseas a little bit, and then now I'm here in Banana Ball. And he played a bunch of years in the big leagues, played a little independent ball, and then he went to Banana Ball. But it just seems like everybody's just ending up in Banana Ball.
yeah.
But I think that definitely Jackie Bradley Jr. is the one that I'm most excited to face.
It was wild too because he was the first overall pick, and we were like, what else is gonna happen?
What a way to start the draft,
Yeah.
huh? And it was the first year for the draft, and when you come out with a bang like that, it was like it was keeping everybody on their toes, you
And
know.
all the announcers and everyone was shook. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, nobody knew. It was
Yeah,
probably the only person that knew was probably Coach Fox.
yeah. I doubt Jackie even knew, to be honest.
Yeah, that's funny.
Um, if you get him out, are you gonna like ask him to sign anything later, or are you just gonna let him go about his business?
No, I'll let him go about his business, but if I get him out, maybe I'll sign something for him.
Take this, get better. What MLB hitter would you want to face, retired or current?
Ooh, okay, so I'll give you a retired and a current. So retired hitter that I would love to face, if I could face prime Barry Bonds,
That'd be
you know,
insane.
the best of the best, you know, and then I think that'd be cool. And then, again, you got to go best of the best. I would say let's go with Otani.
Yeah,
That's probably one of those are probably the two I would say. You got to go, like I said, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And if you got Otani, who's the face of the MLB, World Series champ, pitcher and hitter, I'd love to face him from me on the mound, but I don't want to stand in a box against him.
yeah.
That'd be too tough. Um, and then, of course, Barry Bonds, the home run king, you know, those would be the two that I'd probably choose.
Dude, that'd be awesome. That mindset, in order to be the best, you have to beat the best. Has that always been with you throughout your whole career?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And coming like it's like an underdog mentality, in order to, be the best one out there, you got to show that you're better than the ones that people think are the best ones,
Yeah.
So That's something that I always live by. And then another quote that I always live by that my dad taught me at a very young age is you never know who's watching, and that goes for not only baseball, but also in life, because in baseball, you're in high school, you're in middle school, you're playing in these tournaments, and you never know what scouts or college recruiters are at the games, like we all just look like normal, regular people. So some may have a clipboard, some may have a radar gun, but with the way the game is now, I feel like everybody's parents have a radar gun. So you never
Yeah,
know who's a scout or who's a coach or anything like that. And then my dad always told me that because, you hear of some people, losing college scholarships because of off the field stuff. So my dad always told me like, oh, you're going to the mall with your friends, like make sure you're on your best behavior, and I wasn't a problem child, but that was just him saying like, hey, you never know who's watching, because you see these little like these videos on like TikTok and stuff like that of someone getting road rage, yelling at somebody in the parking lot, and then going into an interview, and then that person is an intern for the person that you're getting interviewed by.
yeah,
And that just it just shows your true colors. It shows how you're going to react in a heated situation.
yeah, dude. Like, I completely understand that. I don't think I'm a problem child. My parents wouldn't say I am, but like, my dad's always taught me that like, do the right thing even when no one's watching, which kind of goes along with what you were saying.
Absolutely. It just shows the type of person you are. It shows your character, and it shows that your parents raised you right.
Yeah, it's kind of reflective, like you said, of how they raised you, what went on in your
Hmm.
household.
Absolutely. And, being on a team as notable as the Savannah Bananas now, and, everybody says this even like in college, and, you're a representation of not only are you representing the name on your back, but you're also representing the name on the front of your jersey.
Yeah,
So if somebody looks at you and, sees you doing something bad, it's a representation of whatever organization you're with. And in this instance, it would be the Savannah Bananas because, I'm on their organization, and if I was to do something that's, not accepted, then it shows that they're allowing it to happen. So that's why I always say you never know who's watching, and you know,
yeah. You've never played banana ball. What made you want to be a part of it?
um, like I said, there's just it seems like such a good time.
Yeah,
It makes the game fun. Um, and going through the independent leagues and with the aspirations to get signed to a minor league club and work my way up, it almost became a job. Or it didn't almost become a job, but it became a job, and baseball is a game. It's a kid's game. You go, and I just wanted to enjoy it again. It seems like I said, everybody in the stadium, everybody on the field is always smiling, having a good time, hanging out with your friends. Even the guys on the other team, you're all friends. Like
yeah,
when I go down to Savannah, I have a house there, and I'm living with three other people, and only one of them is on the Bananas. I have a guy on the coconuts, and I have a guy on the clowns, and I have another banana. And they're going to probably be my best friends this year,
yeah,
because we're going to be living together, so it just, the Bananas seems like such a good time because I feel like everybody's rooting for each other. When you're in the minor leagues and when you're in independent ball, everyone wants to win, but everyone also wants to get that call that they're moving on. So you're not only competing with the team that has a different jersey on, but you're also competing with the people that are on your team. Because if you're doing better than, pitcher 2, 3, 4, then you're going to get looked at more than pitchers 2, 3, 4. And pitchers 2, 3, 4 are going to try to be better than you because they want to get that call. So it almost becomes like competitive in a negative way because we're trying to be better than the next guy so that we could get that call. It
yeah,
becomes very selfish and it's a job. And when I look at the Bananas, it looks like everybody wants like there's no moving on to like a higher, spot. And the goal of everybody is to put out a great product, and that product is entertainment. Like I said before, Jesse Cole says we're not in the baseball business, we're in the entertainment business. So if we're all working together, supporting each other, helping each other with dancing and, the choreography and the entertainment aspect, then we're all supporting each other and that product is going to be really good. So we don't want to be better than the other person. We want to be a well-oiled machine. Everything is working smoothly and going, and everything just clicks.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. Like, people have told me this before too. In the minor leagues and indie ball, it's all about them and getting up to the big leagues, which isn't a bad thing because that's the people's lifelong dream. And then you get to banana ball, and it goes from like you're still gonna have fun competing, and it's a competitive league, but it's not about you. It's about how can I help my teammate? How can I make a fan's night?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the cool part and what really makes Jesse's quote about being in the entertainment business real, because obviously winning is a lot more fun than losing,
Yeah,
in everything. But winning's not the main thing.
yeah,
Obviously we all want to win. We want to bring a championship to the Bananas this year, and I'm going to do everything I could to make that happen. But the main goal is to entertain, and I want to make kids who love the game even more, and grow up wanting to play baseball the same way that I did. I grew up, I loved baseball. I wanted to play it forever. And, 29 years, excuse me, I'm 29 years old, and I'm blessed to still be able to play this game because at the end of this last season, I wasn't sure if I was going to play baseball anymore. I had 8 years of pro ball, 500 career strikeouts in professional baseball. I played a little bit in the Dominican Republic. I played a little bit in Mexico, played, 8 years of independent ball, a little bit of winter ball. And, I think my career was pretty good. You know, I have three championships while playing with the Quebec Capitals in the Frontier League, and I wasn't sure what this next year was going to bring me. So I was applying to get my master's and stuff like that, and I didn't know if baseball was going to be in my life the way that I wanted it to be. So then the opportunity to play for the Bananas or to go try out for the Bananas was, it kind of just fell into my lap. It kind of
yeah,
just I just found it, and it's crazy how I feel like God's watching and he's got a plan and he was like, "Hey, you're not done playing. You might be going through some tough times, but your baseball is your thing. You're not giving up on baseball yet."
yeah, dude.
And just because I'm going the banana ball route and not, pursuing the MLB anymore, I don't feel like that's me giving up on my dream, because my dream is to play baseball for as long as I can. And now I want to impact the lives of the younger ball players out there. And like I said, I want them to fall in love with the game the same way that I fell in love with the game at a young age.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome how God works like that because, like, you would think in your career might have been done. Like you said, you were trying to go back to school, and then He comes up with this amazing opportunity to impact you, your fans, and all stuff like that.
Absolutely.
What has this off season been like training for Banana Ball coming from Indie Ball?
So I've talked about this a lot. I've gotten asked this a couple times, and the baseball aspect of my training this year and the gym and stuff like that, it hasn't really changed much. I just think that it became a little less stressful, to be honest.
Really?
It became a lot more fun, because, in the off season as a professional baseball player, you're going to look at the numbers, you're going to look at TrackMan numbers, you're going to look at, spin and velocity and all these little details that make a good pitcher in baseball, and now with Banana Ball, I feel as if I'm not stressed about it. Obviously, this is my job, and I'm going to do everything I can to be the best banana ball player out there. I want the fans, I want the organization, I want my teammates, everybody to fall in love with me and want me to be around for a long time, but now it's like it's making my off season fun. I'm not worried about all the little details. What I'm worried about, or not even worried, but what I'm focusing on is, I got to throw the ball over the plate and I got to do it often and I got
Yeah.
to do it quickly. I can't take my time. I got to build up a little cardio endurance. I got to be able to consistently throw the ball over the plate as quick as I can, and, get outs, create contact, and, allow my fielders behind me to, entertain as well. Do trick plays, do flips, let Ryan Cox be the glove
He's
magician like he
incredible.
always is. Let Rack do his backflips. Reese do his superhero tricks, and
Yeah.
just allow everybody to just be the great entertainers and banana ball players that they are. You know.
Does it make you feel like a kid again, not having to worry about like the metrics, like you said, your spin rate, how fast you're throwing, and just get it over the plate and get the minutes per inning down?
Absolutely. It absolutely makes it a game. It makes it fun. Baseball's a kid's game.
Yeah.
And when you're in the minor leagues and when you're in independent ball, you're chasing a higher goal and you're not really focusing on what you're doing right there, right then and right there. It's almost like you're trying to prepare for the future, but you never know what the future is going to hold. You're not enjoying where your feet are at, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even in club ball right now, like, I still love it and I'm playing it like I did when I was four in my backyard. But there's so many, like, coaches and players out there that are just there for the money and they don't realize that they're, like, it's their time to play baseball and they might not make it to college or high school to just go out and play.
Absolutely. It's playing high school baseball is tough. Playing college baseball is even tougher. And then making it to professional baseball is, I'm sure you've seen the percentages on social
Real small.
media. It's really small, and that doesn't mean you can't do it because there's opportunities everywhere. Whether you go overseas, you play club ball, you do this, you do that, there's so many places that you could play baseball. But if you don't enjoy like where your feet are at, you're not gonna want to play for a very long time.
Yeah.
I got lucky. I got to play in some really nice, really great places with some great people. I played 4 years with the Quebec Capitals, and I'm extremely grateful for that organization and everybody that I met along the way. And it really made me love the game more than I already did. It helps that, we were winning and, we had, while I was there, I had 3 championships in a row. After I left, they had another championship. So they had 4 in a row. It just, the fans are unbelievable and it just makes baseball enjoyable, and like I've said a couple of times, baseball is a kid's game. It should be played as a game and not a job.
Yeah, dude, like that's the cool thing too. People forget to realize how blessed they are in the moment and are always looking forward. Like it's good to dream big, but you gotta realize how lucky you have it now.
Absolutely. And that's going to be something that I realized once I get out there. Like, I'm going to get out there on that mound and I'm going to be at Yankee Stadium. I'm going to walk out there and I'm going to do a spin and I'm going to look around and I'm going to see 60,000 people looking at me.
That's gonna be
Sold out
incredible.
Yankee Stadium, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. There's 60,000 people are going to be at Yankee Stadium sold out. And that's not even the biggest crowd that we're going to play in front of. They announced the other day that at when we play in Tennessee at the football stadium, we sold that out too for 101,000 tickets.
That's
And
wild.
we're going to be playing baseball in a football stadium in front of 101,000 fans.
That's gonna be so loud.
It's going to be insane. It's going to be so much fun, you know?
What when you pitch in the stadiums and just in general, what do you think the hardest rule would be to adjust to from coming from indie ball?
I think the toughest thing is going to be building up that cardio to throw a ball every 6 seconds, the MPI, minutes per inning. I think that's going to be the biggest, change for me. Not getting the ball, taking a breath, getting the sign, coming set, visualizing, and then go.
Yeah.
Now it's all right, throw the ball, catch the ball, get on the mound, throw the ball, catch the ball, get on the mound, throw the ball, catch the ball, get on the mound, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest changes that will be a big difference between indie ball and bananas.
How do you work on that in the off season? Is it just when you throw your bullpens work really fast?
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been doing, and I would tell my catcher, all right, I'm just going to throw fastballs right now. And I'd tell him, hey, throw me the ball back pretty much as soon as you catch it. I'm going to stay close to the rubber. I'm going to still come set, but I'm not going to pause. Like, I'm just going to catch it and see how quickly I could throw the ball to you,
That's
and it was funny. Like, I want to say, uh, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's
Polydorov.
Polydorov.
I
Him
just interviewed
and
him, so
Really?
yeah,
He seems like such a good dude. I can't
he's
wait to
so
meet him.
he's
I
so
saw him
genuine.
when I was in Dallas at the tryout, and I met
Oh,
him very
cool.
briefly. And it was cool just hearing about him, and the all the coaches were bragging about how like cool he is and like just what he does, and just following him on social media is really cool. But what I saw was him and Clark Gilmore. They were doing the fastest strikeout challenge. They were going back and forth, and I thought that was cool. That's a cool content idea, and it's real. That's a
Yeah,
banana ball thing. Trying to get a batter out and or strike a batter out in 10 seconds.
yeah.
Because in Major League Baseball and professional baseball, I want to say the pitch clock with runners on base is 15 seconds. I want to
It's
say something.
17 with
What is it?
17 with runners on and then 15 without.
Yeah, yeah. It's a third of that in banana ball.
Yeah,
They
it's
want us to
crazy.
throw a pitch in every 6 seconds,
Yeah,
you know?
that's wild.
hmm
Um, Besides, like, as hard as a tr pitcher, but are you practicing any trick plays in the off season?
I got some ideas. Um, just juggling the ball, throw it behind my back, stuff like that. I've been watching a lot of the guys. I've been watching Clark Gilmore a lot. That
Yeah,
guy
he's
has
awesome.
every trick pitch in the book, and I see some of his things and I was like, wow, that seems difficult. I try it and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna need some more practice.
Yeah,
Like but if I ever need some inspiration on what trick pitch to do, I look at Clark's Instagram, and I'm like, all right, like this seems doable. I could try this.
let's see how this
So
goes.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Like he's got the behind the back, he's got the through the legs. I love the smiler one where he turns around and he
yeah,
just looks at the camera. He's like, "Hey,"
it's
that
crazy.
one makes me laugh every time.
I
But
I saw on your Instagram that you have a handstand. Have you thought about trying a handstand pitch?
I have. I have thought about it, but it makes me wonder how I'm going to do it while also having the glove on.
Yeah,
Maybe if I took the glove off, did a handstand, but then, the possibility of the ball getting hit back at me. But, that is something that I was thinking of. I saw another video of someone doing a cartwheel pitch. I thought about doing something like that, even like maybe like a handstand from the back of the mound, rolling into the mound and throwing it off the roll, something like that. The cool thing about banana ball is there's not really any like rules on what you can and can't do with your trick pitches.
yeah,
So if you could do something and throw the ball over the plate, like why not?
yeah. It's not like indie ball or even the minors or college. Like if you do a trick pitch or a trick play, you're cooked. But in banana ball, even if you miss it, no one cares, and they're just there to enjoy the fans and have fun.
Absolutely, and that's something that they told us at the tryout. They said, listen, the umpire is going to be dancing and moving around a lot, so his zone might not be perfect. And the fielders, you're gonna have guys trying to catch the ball behind their back. They're gonna do a backflip, and it's
Yeah,
not gonna be a 100% success rate. So you have to deal with, the potential pop up that should be caught, but somebody tries to do a backflip and they miss it, and you just got to deal with it, because
yeah,
that's the entertainment. Like I'd much rather see someone try to do a backflip and catch the ball and they miss it than them
yeah,
just catch it because that's not entertaining. And that's why, people say that baseball is boring, because it's slow and that's not entertaining, but if Rack does a backflip and he catches the ball, like
Yeah.
that's entertainment right there, you
And
know.
the thing is, like, once you understand that it's like people might mess up and it might bump up your ERA or stats, that takes away from the selfishness because it's about the
Hmm.
fans and not you.
Absolutely. And that is something that um, Jesse and some of the coaches at the tryout told us. They said, having a great season in Banana Bowl isn't having the lowest ERA in the league. It's not having the most home runs in the league. It's not having a 400 batting average. Having a great season in Banana Bowl is how many people can you influence? How many kids can you make love the game of baseball? And how many kids can you make say, that's my favorite player?
Yeah.
And that's what having a good season in Banana Ball is, and during professional baseball, I've been a big guy. I've always checked my stats, because
We all do.
stats are important.
Yeah.
You're not going to move on if you don't have good stats. So I always looked at my stats, and now I don't even know if there's a way to check my stats. I don't know what my ERA is going to be. Like we're playing at football stadiums where right field is going to be 110 feet away. So a couple lefties are going to they're going to bunt the ball over the fence, so you can't really get all caught up in ERA and stuff like that because, we're playing in big league parks, but we're also playing in football stadiums where right field is going to be 100 feet away or, stuff like that. So, stats don't really matter in banana ball, and that's something that I'm going to have to get used to too, because I'm going to be like, oh, like, wonder what my ERA is. It doesn't matter. I've always checked my ERA, how many strikeouts I have, my whip, stuff like that. But now there's different stats here. There's minutes per inning.
Yeah.
There's trick plays. I don't even know what other stuff that we track, but it's not going to be the same as professional baseball.
Yeah, I said it earlier in this interview, but it's a kid's game, just not worrying about the stats. But it does get like, even in club ball, I look at my stats all the time, so I understand it.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a kid's game. And, like I've said it twice already. Jesse said, we're not in the baseball business, we're in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
So if we're entertaining, we're getting our job done. Right. It doesn't matter what our stats are, you
Yeah.
know.
Besides Clark Gilmore, have you been watching anyone on Instagram or anything like that for trick plays?
Um, I mean, I watch everybody,
Yeah.
all the old bananas, party animals, anybody that's new, because everybody's experimenting,
Yeah.
and even the guys that just recently got drafted, like myself, like who are pitchers, they're all going through their trial and error of trick pitches. Everybody's trying I've seen a couple guys try the handstand pitch, and I watch everybody, all these new guys and the old guys and
Cool.
yeah.
Forget the position part of it, but speaking of trick plays, if you could steal one trick play from someone, who would it be?
Steal one trick play. It's got to be the backflip catch.
Yeah, it's
Got to be.
incredible. Would you?
It's it's crazy because the talent of these players is so incredible that you know I say most of these guys, probably a lot of them could go play in the minor leagues. They
Yeah.
could go play in independent ball, but they don't want to.
Oh, the
They
fun.
chose banana ball because it's more fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you still get to play the game you love, and you get to have so much more fun and influence on the rest of the world and the baseball world. And, you have all that while playing with the bananas instead of being just a number,
Yeah.
because when you're in independent ball in the minor leagues, unless you're like the dude, you're just another number. The organizations don't truly care about you if you're a bottom of the barrel guy, you know, unless you're a bonus baby or, one of the guys that they have time and money and invested in them and they think that this guy could be a future big leaguer, then they're going to take time to really focus on you. But if you're just another guy, and I've seen a lot of it with guys that get signed out of indie ball, they're
Yeah.
just placeholders. There's been guys that have had successful professional careers coming out of indie ball, like, a guy that always comes to mind is Spencer Bivens.
Yeah.
He's a pitcher for the Giants. Um, There's also Dugan Darnell, who he was on the Rockies. I know he just got traded. I'm not sure which organization picked him up, but he they're both indie ball guys that
Again for going a little extra.
no problem. Part two.
Yep. So you were just talking about like the two big names that came from indie ball that now are with the I think you said the Giants and the Rockies.
Oh yeah, they came out of indie ball. They grinded their way, and they got a chance, and now they're in the big leagues. So there are guys that come out of indie ball, and they control their own destiny when they're in the minors, and they end up making it. But a lot of guys out of indie ball, they're placeholders.
Hmm.
Where oh, we need a guy in high A. All right, we're going to sign this guy to finish out the month and a half of our season this year. And then once the season ends, we're going to release him, and I've seen that way too much,
Yeah.
and, it just gets a bad, you know, it seems not fair to those guys, because they're going after their dream and they want to grind and get that fair chance to show I can play at this level. And because there's not millions of dollars invested in this guy, and we just signed this guy just to fill some space. It's just like these big organizations, they don't truly care about you, and it's like you're just a number, and it's not your livelihood that they're focused on. It's not your life. It's just these big billionaire organizations that they just they all they care about is the check,
Yeah.
the money, but I mean, that's just life, and that's why I think that the Bananas is so incredible, because everything that I've seen from the organizations and the conversations that I've had with people that are in the, front offices and stuff like that, it's incredible how much they truly care about us. They want to take care of us. They want to see us do well. They want to help us out in life itself. Not only with the product on the field, but they care about us as human beings.
Yeah, dude, that's the like the cool thing. Like indie ball, like you said, it's fun for yourself, and it's kind of like the big leagues. It's $1 million owners that don't care personally about your life and more about how much money, even if it's an extra $200, how can I make that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some people, they come out of college, and I mean, it's different now because they have NILs, and all these college guys, they have $50,000 deals with companies, so there's no really grinding anymore.
Yeah,
There's no more like eating ramen noodles and hot pockets for lunch. Like these guys are eating, caviar and
yeah,
all this stuff
that's
because of
it.
these deals. But when people come out of indie ball, you don't make a ton of money, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and nobody knows what anybody else's, home life is like, and what even that $200, could do for somebody's life.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. I haven't gone through it, but what I've heard through these interviews.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If
And I'm
you,
sure everything that you've heard is all true too.
yeah,
The good,
I've
the good and the bad.
I've heard one wild story that I was like, dang, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you could get one MLB player to join the Bananas, who would it be?
Ooh, this is fun. One MLB player to join the Bananas. Um, let's go with let's go with Chapman. Just because I would love to see somebody with that type of ability just up close and personal. Like I would love to stand in on a bullpen that he's throwing, or, just see him throwing that fast,
Yeah,
and, kind of study the way he moves, or someone like Otani, the
yeah,
face of the MLB, who also throws 100 miles an hour, and he's a freak, like he does it all,
yeah.
so I think I'd say Otani instead of
The
Chapman.
hitters in Otani too, but the hitters in Banana Ball with the rule Chapman would be so cooked because he throws like 103 and then he takes breaks in that movie, but it'd be back to back to back in Banana Bowl.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be difficult for
Yeah.
guys like that. Max effort guys. Yeah.
What do you think makes what would make a Aroldis Chapman a good fit for Banana Bowl?
Um, I mean, I don't know if he would be a good fit for Banana Ball, but because I don't know him on a personal level, but I just said that because it'd be incredible to watch him just the way he does everything on the mound and just watch his delivery and watch him throw. And selfishly, I would just like to see him throw in a bullpen five
Yeah,
feet away from me,
I
you
think
know?
we all would. That'd be insane. When you got drafted to Banana Bowl, you had a draft party, right?
Um, I mean, not exactly. I had some family over for the live draft on YouTube.
Yeah,
I didn't get drafted that night, but then the next day I had my immediate family with me. And it was crazy how it all happened because it it happened at 12:12 in the morning, and which is angel numbers,
yeah,
and my brother was getting ready to go to work. My mom just came home from work to get some lunch, and my dad was home because he's retired, and my mom's best friend, who I call my second mom, was over, and it was just like everybody was there to share that moment with me, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I had my family and everyone that cares about me around me when I got that incredible news. I went undrafted in college and high school, and I never really got that phone call. I've gotten phone calls like, "Hey, you want to come play for this independent team?" But I never got like the draft call. So that was a really cool moment that I got to share with my family.
that's awesome. God definitely painted that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, being like not getting that phone call to get drafted out of high school or college, do you think that it wasn't really a phone call, but hearing your name called on the draft was just as cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm really curious because when when the players on the first night got drafted, the announcers and the people on screen talked a little bit about each player that got drafted.
yeah,
So I was curious if I got drafted that night, what would have been said about me. That's the only thing that I was wondering, but seeing my name on draft night on the underneath the team, the Savannah Bananas, this whole league was built on the Savannah Bananas, so I'll take getting drafted a little bit later in the draft and being on the Savannah Bananas, over playing for a different team. I'd be blessed to play for any of the teams,
yeah.
but being on the Savannah Bananas it just seems so cool, and
It really does.
it's such a great opportunity, and it's a blessing, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah. So that must be cool too, because like you can play in banana ball and the coaches trust in you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they drafted me because they see me as a guy that could, not only make an impact on the field for the Savannah Bananas, but also make an impact with the fans and the entertainment aspect off the field,
Yeah,
and that's something that I look forward to this year because I've always been a guy who, helps out with the organization, helps out around the community. In 2023, I was relief pitcher of the year for the Frontier League. I was pitcher of the year for the Quebec Capitals, and I was also community player of the year
wow.
for the Quebec Capitals because I always did the kids camps. I always helped out around the community. Any appearances that we needed to make, I was always the guy that ever they called. And the following year when I was with the Charleston Dirty Birds, I went up to our media relations I guess worker, and I told her, hey, if you need anything, appearances, autographs, pregame stuff, you come to me because I'll be there. That's
Yeah.
what I do. And that's what I think really drew me to banana ball because I've always, we've always been there. I mean, we've all been there before. We were that little kid who, looked at these minor leaguers, major leaguers, independent ball players, whatever stadium we were at watching. We looked at them like superheroes, you
Yeah.
know? So I want to be that superhero for as many kids as I can.
That's awesome. In some ways, was the community award cooler because it showed your parents raised you right, you're a good person, and just you can be that superhero for kids?
Yeah, I definitely think that that was an honorable award because, you know, the performance-based awards are cool, but at the end of the day, it's just, I don't want to say it's just, performing on a baseball field, but I think showing the type of person you are can go a lot longer. It could
Yeah,
go a lot further, and I feel as if that had to be part of the reason why the Bananas have given me this opportunity because they saw that I was a great guy off the field and, community relations and, fans first, you know, stuff that would it definitely had an impact, and it will always have an impact. And I'm going to take that to the grave.
yeah,
I was community player of the year the same season that I was pitcher of the year, and, it shows that I was, according to the award that I got, I was the best relief pitcher in the entire league. And I also helped out around the community and, treated the fans with respect and, gave back to the community, as I was still able to perform according to the award better than anybody else in the league while still giving back to the community.
that must be such a cool feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Getting any award and recognition for, the type of person you are or the hard work that you've put in, it's always good to, get stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Bible verse?
Um, I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah, that's mine too. I think it's so cool because
That's yeah,
like you might not realize that you can do it and like you might be hesitant and God's like trust I can push you through this.
absolutely. And I don't know if it's a Bible verse or if it's just a quote that has to do with God, but one of my favorites is God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers.
Yeah.
And everybody goes through tough periods in their life. Maybe a breakup, maybe a death, whatever they go through. If you could trust God and his plan and you know he's not going to put anything in front of you that he doesn't know that you cannot overcome.
Yeah.
Everything that every, negative thing in front of you was there for a reason, and I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and you don't meet people on accident.
Yeah.
Everybody has a certain reason why they have been put into your life.
He has a greater plan for us that we don't see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes we'll never see it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we won't know why, but there is a reason, and sometimes we have to, take our ego away and say, you know what, I trust God. God's got a plan. He's got a bigger, brighter, better plan for me. And, I'm going to just trust his word.
For sure. What is your favorite food with banana in it?
Favorite food with bananas in it. Let's go with, ooh, what about, go banana pudding. I like pudding.
Pudding's good too. That sounds so good.
Banana pudding. Got to do it.
How do you think you'll balance fan entertainment this year and pitching well?
It's gonna be difficult, because you got to, as a reliever, I've been told that I'll be in the stands for half the game, and then, if I pitch, they'll tell me, and I'll have to run down the stands, get into the bullpen, warm up, and then go pitch.
Yeah.
But I've always been someone who wanted to interact with fans. I've always wanted to have conversation with fans, and I feel like as a pitcher, I could just flip a switch and be like, all
Um,
right, fan mode, like hang out, have fun to boom, let's get after it.
yeah,
Let's go strike somebody out. Even though that's not going to be like the switch that's flipped, I don't know if it's all right, let's go strike somebody out or if it's all right, let's go, entertain and let's go play the game. But I love strikeouts. I love to
we
strike a
all
guy
do.
out, but I'll try to strike guys out, but at the end of the day, it's entertainment. And
Yeah,
we're gonna have a great time. No matter what happens.
that's a cool switch to have, just being able to flip it and be like, let's lock in here.
Exactly. You know,
So I'm gonna ask this question to everyone else from now on, but what advice would you give to your younger 12-year-old self?
I love these questions. Because I feel like I've learned so much. Not only in baseball but just in life itself. And no matter what your goals are, someone's going to tell you that you cannot do that.
There's always
You
that
know,
one hater.
Absolutely. And the bigger your goals are, the more haters you're going to have. And there's going to be people that are going to do whatever they can to take that away from you. Whether it's, your goal or if it's just somebody in your life. Somebody's going to try to rip that person or, that goal away from you. And it's going to be, you know, up to you and your true support system to make that person eat their words.
Yeah,
You have to, really fight for what you want. And, who's to say that you can't do that, you know? So, what would I tell my 12-year-old self? Keep going. Don't let anybody tell
well,
you can't do something. If you really want to do something, you really want something to happen, show us.
yeah,
Work for it. Do it. Because nothing's impossible. You want to be a big leaguer, go work for it.
yeah.
Never leave everything out there. Do whatever you can to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen,
You know you worked for it.
don't be able to say you never want to be able to say, oh well, if I did this, then maybe this would have happened. You know, Never have any regrets and just fight for what you love and fight
Yeah,
for what you want. You
that's
know.
what. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's where I feel like I'm blessed. Like the other four people in my family, they support me, they let me be who I am. And then even outside of that, my mom's side, my dad's side, I just have a real good support system. And then my dad has this quote that his dad taught me that's always stick with me. If you want it, go get it. And I've just always thought about that when I feel unmotivated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having a strong support system it's super important,
Yeah,
because like I said earlier, you never know what somebody's going through. Whether it's a tough home life, a breakup, a death, you know, it, being a positive person and influencing someone in a positive way, it could be a life or death difference.
yeah,
It could really save somebody's life.
yeah.
Especially with all the negativity and all the hate out there in the world now and all the difference of opinions. And, I just think there's way too many people out there who get enjoyment from,
Hating.
taking away happiness from people just because they're not happy. Somebody out there has something in their life that, they're not happy with, and they just feel like, all right, well, if I'm not happy, then this person can't be happy, because I'm not happy, and I just think that that's just a tough way to live. And, people out there, they try to bring down others because they're down, and I just feel like the Bananas is the complete opposite of that,
Yeah,
because you're going to go out there and it doesn't matter if you're having a great day or if you're having a bad day, because once you show up to the field and you get with all the guys and you see all the fans screaming, having a good time, it's going to turn everything around. and
Yeah,
everybody's gonna be happy, and that's the way it should be. You should be working towards trying to make other people happy instead of bringing other people down just because you're not happy with something in your own life, you
cool.
know?
Yeah, especially on social media, you see it all the time, and you're like, dude, you need to like first off realize that you're struggling, get help, and then be like that person's having a good day, just let them be.
Absolutely. And it also comes with jealousy. Why can't I have this? Why can't I do that? Oh, this person's happy. I want to be happy, but seeing them happy is making me not happy. So I got to do whatever I can to make that person not happy.
Yeah,
Instead of how can I make myself just as happy? How can I learn from that person or these people on why are they happy? How can I change to be happier?
yeah,
You know what I mean? And instead of ruining something that is special to somebody else, why not try to learn from that person? You
yeah,
know, Instead of having hate, why not try to learn something?
yeah. That's all the questions I have for you. Do you have anything for me?
No, I don't. I had a great time, and I'm glad we were able to, get on here and talk, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude,
And
it
I
was.
could talk about this stuff in my career and baseball itself for hours on hours.
I could too. So thank you for sitting down with me. I very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
No problem. You have a great rest of your upcoming tour, I guess.
I'll see you out there, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
You got it.